Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with the poem just as my notes. Okay, in Parshas Bay we find the first mitzvah that the Yidden were given to sanctify the new month through the Beis Din. The years and the months they had to calculate and determine. This mitzvah is so fundamental that it crystallizes our mission. Okay, so in this week's Parsha, Parshas Bay, the Yidden are given the very first mitzvah. So you're going to ask, what about Adam Avinu? He had a bris milah, Parshas Lach Lecha. What about Gid Hanashe? The Malach hurt Yaakov, and then because of that, we don't have the Gid Hanashe. So seemingly, there are other mitzvahs before this mitzvah. So other mitzvahs before this one were given to individual people. And later on in the Torah, for example, in Parshas Tazria, that's when we're instructed about the bris milah again, and that's when it was actually given to all the Yidden. So there were other instructions for specific people at specific times, but this is the first mitzvah that applies to the entire Jewish nation that is given, and it's considered to be the very first mitzvah. And it's so fundamental that from this mitzvah, we're going to learn about what our mission is on this earth. And it's so amazing that every time we learn a teaching, like whatever mitzvah it is, that is the most amazing mitzvah on earth, you know? But we're going to see how this mitzvah truly is. Okay. Since the Torah is a book of instruction, its placement, Rashi does question. With the first mitzvah, why doesn't the Torah begin? Why does the Torah start with creation? Okay, so if it's taka the first mitzvah, and what's the Torah? Torah is Lashon Hara. Torah means a lesson, instruction. So if it's the first mitzvah, why isn't it in the beginning of the Torah? Why are you waiting to Chumash Shemai's Parshas Bay to tell you the very first mitzvah? Why start with creation? This is Rashi's question. And it's addressed right away in the very first Rashi of the Torah. What does Rashi say? Rashi's explanation is that from the start, the rights of the Jewish nation, the Torah wants to impart. Since Hashem created the entire world, it all belongs to Him, and He chose to give Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden. Okay, so the Yidden, when they came to conquer Eretz Yisrael, which was the land of Canaan, so there were people living there at that time, and there were 7 nations. And so in the first Rashi, it says that the other nations will come and say to the Yidden, you are robbers, you are thieves. You came, you kicked us out of our land, and you're thieves. So right away, in the very first pasuk of the Torah, Hashem wants to give us an answer to tell the Goyim. And what's the answer? The answer is Hashem created the world. Bereshis bar Elokim. Hashem created the world, and it belongs to Him. And He chose to take it away from the people of Canaan and to give it to the Yidden. And this is our right. And that's why this is the first thing that Torah has to say. So this is Rashi's answer for why Bereshis is first. But soon we're going to see that the theme of Bereshis, which is that Yidden, that the world is created for the Yidden, that the Yidden are in charge, the whole purpose of the world is for the Yidden and for Torah. We're going to see that this theme, that Hashem created the world and Hashem created the world for the Yidden, is the same theme as the very first mitzvah. So technically, although it's true that the Torah does not start with the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon, but what we learn from the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon is the same lesson as Bereshis bar Elokim. So we're going to see that in a few minutes. Okay. Another question that is top rate is, why is it that when the Rambam does enumerate the mitzvahs in order from 1 until 613, as number 1, the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon isn't seen? Okay, so you want to tell me that technically speaking, the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon should have come at the beginning of the Torah, but for technical reasons, there was something else that was very important, so it's not. Okay, I can accept that. But there are many different special people that enumerated the 613 mitzvahs. What are they? There's the Sefer HaChinuch, there's the Rambam. They made a list of what the 613 mitzvahs are. And the Rambam, who's the main codifier and the main one who we go by, he doesn't list the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the moon, as number one. So what does it mean that it's number one? What's the first mitzvah, according to the Rambam? Yeah. Yeah. The very first mitzvah, actually, the very first mitzvah that the Rambam says is mitzvah number one is to believe in one God, because I can't fulfill any mitzvahs until I believe in God. So the first mitzvah has to be Anech Hashem Elokecha. So the Rambam does not list it as mitzvah number one. So not only is the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon not first in the Torah, but it's not even first in the listing of the 613. So really, the answer is as follows. There's two ways to view it. From the perspective of the person first has to believe in Hashem. For the person, the first mitzvah has to be belief in Hashem, and then everything else could flow from there. But from the perspective of the Torah, which a mitzvah is written first in the Torah, that is taka, the mitzvah of sanctifying the new moon. From Torah's perspective, sanctifying the new moon is so fundamental that it's considered to be first. That's from Torah's perspective. But we're not talking about an individual person's connection to Hashem and the order of how, in regards to an individual person's growth, we're not talking about that. In regards to individual person's growth, first you need Anech Hashem Elokecha, which comes after Parshas Yisrei, that you need first. But from the Torah's perspective, Torah says sanctifying the new moon, that's first, because from there we're going to learn something, we're going to learn incredible stuff for all the mitzvahs, and all the mitzvahs taka flow from the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon, and we have to see how. Okay. Between Rashi and the Rambam, there is no contradiction. Rashi is the one that said that the mitzvah of sanctifying the new moon should be first. And the fact that the Rambam doesn't put it first is not a contradiction. Why? Because when it comes to the person fulfilling a mitzvah obligation, the Rambam counts belief in Hashem as mitzvah number one. But you first need to believe in Hashem in order to get his mitzvahs done. Hello, hi Miriam. Okay. Hello. Okay, here you go. This is for you. Okay, we just finished the first page, but I'm gonna summarize it. Okay. Okay, so just to recap, we're saying that in this week's parsha is the very special mitzvah of sanctifying the new month. And how does that happen? When there's witnesses that come to Beis Din and they say we saw the new moon, and that's how Rosh Chodesh is established. So that mitzvah we find in this week's Torah portion, and we're learning that from the Torah perspective, it is considered to be the first mitzvah because it is so fundamental, and it teaches us about all the other mitzvahs, and we're going to see how. Okay, so now I'm on the second page. Okay. Okay. So we asked the question, we said, if it's really the first mitzvah, why isn't it found in the beginning of the Torah? Why isn't that should be instead of Reishis Bar Elikim, we should say The first mitzvah is to sanctify the new moon. So Rashi said that it's for a side reason because Bereishis Bara Elokim has to come first because we have to be able to prove to the other nations of the world that Eretz Yisrael belongs to us. Hashem created the world, and the Yidden are the Hashem created the world, and He's in charge, and He chose to give it to the Yidden. That's why Bereishis Bara Elokim comes first. The fact that the Rambam, who lists the order of the mitzvahs, does not count the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon as number one is because for a person's individual avodah, they first need Anei Hashem Lekecha. They first need to believe in Hashem, and only then could they start fulfilling all the other mitzvahs. First, you have to accept upon yourself that Hashem is the king, and then you could fulfill His mitzvah. So that's why the Rambam doesn't enumerate this mitzvah as the first mitzvah. However, from the Torah's perspective, it is the first mitzvah that is written in the Torah. Okay. When Rashi says that sanctifying the moon is the first mitzvah given, he means that it's the first mitzvah that in the Torah is written for all Yidden. He is not talking about the personal development of how a Yid does grow. From Torah's perspective, from sanctifying the moon, all the other mitzvahs flow. Okay. The foundational concepts from sanctifying the moon we see being expressed in areas 3. So there are three things that we're going to learn about this mitzvah that are so special that we're going to see why it's considered to be first. Number 1, from this mitzvah we learn the manner in which the Torah was given. The written Torah can't be understood without the oral Torah's interpretation. I'll read one paragraph. From this mitzvah, it is clear without a doubt, because about the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon, the Even Ezra points out that in the written Torah, there are 0 details about how to fulfill it actually. The input of the oral Torah, which was later written by the sages, is necessary. Okay, so all the Torah says is that you should sanctify the new moon, starting with this month, which is the month of Nisan. But it gives us no details. It doesn't say that the cycle of the moon is 29.5 days. It doesn't tell you what to do to add another month so that Pesach should always come in the spring. It doesn't tell you anything about what the witnesses have to see and what the Beis Din has to verify and what Beis Din has to ask. There are 0 details in the written Torah about this mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the new moon. And this mitzvah is so important because I need to know when Rosh Chodesh is in order to know when Pesach is. Why do I need to know when Pesach is? Because I'm not allowed to eat chametz. So if I don't know when Pesach is, and I eat chametz, then what happens is a big punishment. It's called kares. And the same thing is Yom Kippur. If I don't know when Rosh Chodesh, if I don't know when Rosh Chodesh Tishrei is, I don't know when Yom Kippur is, I don't know when I have to fast, and if I don't fast, I get kares. And every single yantif is based on when Rosh Chodesh is, and all the mitzvahs that have to be done in the right time, because if I eat matzah today, I don't get a mitzvah. I only get a mitzvah if I eat matzah on Pesach. So Rosh Chodesh is so fundamental. It's so important, and yet the Torah says 0 details, nothing. And then we find, let's say, for Tzaras, so the Rosh Chodesh affects every single Jew. Tzaras, which only affects very few people, and only for a very short amount of time in history, that there's so many details, colors and here, and if it sprouts in 7 days, and the coin comes back and forth, and yet for here, there's nothing. So this is a perfect case to teach us that there's no such thing as I'm only going to keep Torah Shebechsav. I'm only going to keep the written Torah. Don't tell me about the sages. I only want to know what Torah says. So from this mitzvah, it's so fundamental because it teaches us that Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh, the written Torah and the oral Torah, are one. You can't have one without the other. When it says, "V'hayu l'toitefos beinei necha," They should put the tefillin l'taitafais. What does that mean? It's a new word. And the only way we know what it means is through the oral Torah that was passed down and eventually written down. When it says, Loi sebashal gedi b'chalev imoi, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. It doesn't say I can't have a cheeseburger, but no. If not for Torah Sheba'al Peh, I don't even know how to read the pasuk, which Likkutei to use. Is it Loi sebashal gedi b'chalev imoi, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk, or Loi sebashal gedi b'chalev imoi, don't cook a kid in its mother's fat. So even the Likkutei I don't know unless I have Torah Sheba'al Peh. So this is the perfect scenario, the perfect case to teach us this lesson. And there have been many people that have walked through our Chabad house that have said, don't tell me about the stages. I just want to know what Torah says I'm not allowed to do. And it's funny because they don't even realize, people that say this, they don't even realize that, for example, in the conservative and the reform, the main part of Yiddishkeit is in the shul. Who was the one that established the concept of davening 3 times a day, of a minyan, of a shul? You're not going to find anywhere in the Torah where it says 10 men should gather and daven. It's not there, right? So basically what's happening is they're picking and choosing what from the sages they do or don't want to do. They don't even realize that coming to shul, which is the focus of everything. Today I went to the doctor, so he's Jewish. So okay, so I got into conversation with him and I told him that my daughter's bas mitzvah is on Sunday. So he said, which parsha is she reading? So now I have to explain to him that she's not reading the parsha. And he's like, okay. He says to me, oh, make sure you don't have the baby early because you have to be there for the bas mitzvah and that you can't do that, whatever it was. But for he says, in my synagogue, everyone reads from the Torah. And the people spend $80,000 to $100,000 on a bas mitzvah. It's like a wedding, whatever. We had this whole conversation. So, the concept bar and bas mitzvah and all of it is not in the written Torah. So he was shocked that she's not going to read from the Torah, but the whole system, it's just ignorance basically. So that's the first lesson that we learn. Number one, why is this mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh so fundamental and cool? Number one, because from here we learn Torah Shebechsav comes together with Torah Sheba'al Peh. End of story. That's number one. Number two, the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon does show the power that Torah and mitzvahs have over nature at every hour. Okay, so here's a hard example. Okay, so the second thing is, here's an example that's brought down in the Gemara, which is a hard example to explain. But basically, this is the case. If there's a girl and she's in an accident or someone harms her, until the age of 3, if she loses her virginity, if the hymen is broken, it will grow back it will grow back. But this is like physically speaking, once a girl passes the age of 3, if there's an accident or if someone hurts her, then it will not grow back, and then it's halachically it has halachic implications for the ksuba, etc. So what happens if a girl's birthday is Yud Adar? Yud Adar, she turned 3. Then on Tes Vav Adar, she fell from a tree. I don't know, there was an accident, and now the hymen was broken and she lost her virginity. Then at the end of the month, Beis Din says, you know what? We're making 2 Adars this year. We're making a leap year. So now, technically, she's 2. She's 2 because only Adar Beis, only when it's Yud Adar Beis, is she really 3. So now, although physically you say, look, she's already 3, but now Torah made a change, And Torah said, no, now she's two. So what happens? Yes, although it makes sense, does not make sense medically, the hymen will grow back. She's considered to be two, and she keeps her virginity. So what does this show? That Torah, the Kiddush Levana, sanctifying the new moon, is so powerful that it has that it's even more powerful than nature. And if Beis Din says that we're adding a new month, or the same thing happened, even if in a smaller time slot, if let's say if two witnesses come on the 29th day, then the 30th day is Aleph of the next month. If there are no witnesses come, then we have a 30th day, and the 31st day becomes Aleph automatically, because the moon cycle can't be more than 29 and a half days. So let's say a girl's birthday is the 30th day of whatever month. And technically, okay, so if her birthday is the 30th of the month, and then Beis Din says, I'm sorry, if her birthday is the 29th of the month, and then Beis Din says, oh, this month is going to have a 30th day. So now, so if there was an accident on the day of her birthday, let's say, right, then technically the fact that Beis Din said, okay, now it's not at 29 days this month, it's 30 days this month. So now she has one more day of being two. So now again, she gets her virginity back. I think that's the story. Okay, so basically we see that Torah, Beis Din, is more powerful than nature. And we see there's so many miracles, so many things that we see that nature says, oh, this person is not going to be able to live. But we're above nature. Yidden are above nature. Torah is above nature. And then miracles happen. My son, Shmuel Isaac, he was born almost 10 years ago. He was born 5.5 weeks early, and he failed his hearing test. So they said that we should come to the hospital at 3 months and do a test, which we did. And they told us that he has hearing loss. And they explained that in every person's ear, there are ears that are standing up. In Shmuel Isaac's ear, they're crushed. And come back in a year. And he'll probably need hearing aids for the rest of his life. And I'm taking care of this teeny tiny baby. And I don't know if he could hear me. And the appointment that we had was September time in shop. In August, I don't know if it was July or August, my husband lost his tefillin that he got that were written by the same scribe as that were written by the same scribe who had written the tefillin of the Rebbe Rashab, belonged to his great grandfather Moshe Garari, same name as him, and it was lost somewhere in Arizona, in Utah. He had on a teaching trip, fell out of a truck. His whole suitcase fell out of a truck, and it was gone. And when I heard that, I was like, okay. And it was on the day of my daughter's bas mitzvah, a different daughter. And we decided that we're going to take davening much more seriously. And at that time, I made a commitment that I'm going to daven 2 Shemona Esrei a day. So there was a lot of davening going on. And we come before this appointment, and we come to the appointment, and they do whatever test they have to do. And they said he has no hearing loss. His hearing is perfect. And they said it doesn't make sense. When they tell you that something's wrong, they can never take it back. I'm saying if here was crushed or whatever that means, like how did it all of a sudden, whatever. And trust me, he could hear. And if he can't hear, if you call him for supper and he doesn't come, you just say ice cream, and he's down the steps. So Baruch Hashem. So that's what I'm saying. Like nature could say that you can't hear, that it's impossible. But Torah, the power of Torah, and the power of a Yid, and the power of davening, and the power of we have power that overrides nature. And where do we see this? We see this in example. We see this point in case in the midst of Kiddush HaChodesh, when if I add a new month or if I add an extra data a month, then what it could do is it's kind of like although nature says, oh, the kid is 3, all of a sudden they go back to 2 and physically has an effect on the girl. Okay. Okay, so now we're able to read this in here. Once a girl turns 3, her hymen can't grow back physically. But if Basin establishes a leap year, she is still 2 and gets back her virginity. The power that Torah has over the world's reality is deeply linked to the message of Bereshis we see. In the word Bereshis, the letter Beis is big and has the numerical equivalence of 2 to show that Hashem created the world for 2 reasons, for Torah and for every Jew. So this concept that we learn about Kiddush HaChodesh, that Torah rules and is in charge over nature, it's the same exact message as Bereshis Bar Elikim. Because Bereshis, you'll see the Beis is extra big, Beis Reshis, for 2 firsts. Hashem created the world for Torah and for the Yidden. So if Hashem created the world for Torah and for Yidden, then they are in charge of, then they're more powerful than the world. If that's the reason why you created, if the reason why Hashem created the world is for Torah, then for sure Torah is a Baal Bayis. For sure Torah is in charge of the world. For example, if you know your father takes you out for dinner, or your husband takes his wife out for dinner, right? And let's say she's lactose intolerant, so he's not going to take her to a dairy restaurant. Why? Because the whole point of taking her out is to give her a good time, right? So you're going to, and especially, let's say the daughter or the wife has a special restaurant that they like to go to. He'll take her to that restaurant. Why? Because the whole point of taking her out is to give her a good time. So then, of course, you're going to do what makes that person happiest. So if the whole world is for the purpose of Torah and for the Yidden, then for sure Torah is in charge of the world. It's not the other way around. Okay, so right at the beginning of the Torah, it says Beis Reshis, the world is created for the Yidden and for Torah. So therefore, it's the same message as Kiddush HaChodesh, that Torah is in charge of nature. Nature could say she's 3, and Torah says no, she's 2. She was 3 and now she became 2. The Torah could change it. Since the world was created for Torah and the Yidden, it must be that Torah is more powerful than creation. Therefore, Torah has the power to override the laws of nature. So that's already 2 things that we learned. What's so special about Kiddush HaChodesh, sanctifying the new moon? Number 1, we learned that from it we see how Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Torah Sheba'al Peh and Torah Shebachsav, the written Torah, the oral Torah, come together. We need both. And the second thing we learn from this Kiddush HaChodesh, from sanctifying the new moon, is we learn that Torah is in charge and overrides nature. Now we're up to number 3. Not only does Torah control the world's reality, but through Torah and mitzvahs, a Yid can transform the world and make it holy. From the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon, we learn how this can be done. Sanctifying the moon even includes I have to fix that. Sanctifying the moon even included the cycle of the sun. Okay, what does this mean? Not only is Torah in charge, my way or the highway, but Torah has the power to transform and to change the world. Okay, how do we see this? When a part of sanctifying the moon, it wasn't just the Beis Din had more responsibility than just knowing what the moon is supposed to look like on Rosh Chodesh, and that when witnesses come, they should ask the right questions to make sure that their attack is seeing the moon and they're not seeing a piece of the cloud. You know what the Beis Din had to know? They had to know what the moon is supposed to look like every single day of the month. And not only that, not only have to understand the entire cycle of the moon, they also have to know the cycle of the sun. Because in the Jewish calendar, the sun and the moon come together. We need both because every 19 years, the cycle of the sun and the cycle of the moon come again together. Therefore, if you're whenever you were born 19 years later, the Hebrew and the English calendar will match, right? And this is the reason why we need the sun, is because we have to always have Pesach in the spring. And also there's a mitzvah called Ketores, which is an incense. And the incense was divided according to 365 days of the year. So we see that in Yiddishkeit, we do take into account the sun. So we don't find the sanctifying the sun anywhere, but through sanctifying the moon, it's not just the moon. There's so much other stuff that gets elevated and sanctified through sanctifying the moon. It's not just the moon. There's and if I sanctify the new month, then what's holy? Rosh Chodesh is holy. And then once I know what Rosh Chodesh is, then I know when the holidays are, and those days are sanctified and holy. But guess what? Sanctifying the moon doesn't just include Rosh Chodesh, making Rosh Chodesh holy, doesn't just include making Yantif holy, doesn't just include the cycle of the sun and the cycle of the moon, but also all the in-between mundane days. It's not just, Yud Dal Nisan, that's Pesach, so we just have no choice but to wait 14 days. No. Every single one of those days that's leading up to the Yantif is also holy, because I have to understand the cycle of the moon on every single one of those days. So basically, through sanctifying the moon, what are you doing? You're sanctifying every single moment of time. You're making every single moment of time holy. And that's what that's why this mitzvah of sanctifying the moon is so foundational and so fundamental, because it's teaching us what our mission is. Our mission is to sanctify and to make everything holy. And we see this from the moon, because sanctifying the moon is not just making the moon holy, making Rosh Chodesh holy, but it affects the time, every single moment of time, and also Hashem recreates the world every single second. So every single second of time, even when we have a calendar and we don't have witnesses, and also not always was there witnesses, not always did witnesses witness the moon. So there were some months that there was no witnesses, and it was also only for them at that time the Beis Hamikdash. So what about these days? But just from sanctifying the moon for those times that it was sanctified impacts every moment of time throughout history. And that's to teach us that our mission is, what are we doing here? We also have to sanctify and make holy everything in this world. Now, this world is made up of two things, time and space. So this mitzvah sanctifies time. And what's our mission? Our mission is to look what flows from that. Our mission is to sanctify space. And to sanctify things that take up space. What comes first, time or space? What do you think was created first, time or space?
What was that? Simultaneously?
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Created in 7 days, which is time.
So time is a creation, and I'm going to ask you a question like this, okay? If you're cutting up a salad, so you have tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers on the counter, right? So right now, there's whole tomatoes and whole cucumbers. Come back in 5 minutes, now you cut it up into small pieces. So when I am creating something or interacting with something, there's before and there's after. Before there were just vegetables, or the vegetables were in the fridge. And after, now it's a salad. So for things, tomatoes, cucumbers, tables, there's always a before and after. Before, this table used to be a tree. Now it's a table. So before and after, so first I have to have before and after. First I have to have time, past, present, future. And once I have time, I could fill it up with things. I could elevate things only after I have time. You wake up in the morning, what do you have? You didn't do anything yet. You have a day. You have time. Now the question is, what am I going to fill my day with? So time actually comes before space. Time was created before things and before places and anything, before anything, time was created first. And so therefore, the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon, which is sanctifying time, has to come before, is the first mitzvah, because time has to be sanctified before I could sanctify things. And therefore, the first mitzvah is a mitzvah that sanctifies time, teaching us that we have to sanctify things. So basically, it crystallizes our entire mission from this mitzvah of what we see how one little action sanctifies all of time, teaches us teach us what our mission is to sanctify things. Now, the fact that I came here tonight at 8:30, right? What did it take for me to get here? I needed clothes, I needed makeup, I needed a car, right? I needed all the different things. I needed a computer, I needed paper, I needed my brain, I needed, yeah, okay. There's so many things that I needed in order to get here, right? So if I'm wearing a sweater to the class and the sweater was made in China in a certain factory, when I'm here learning, the factory in China is getting elevated. So we have no idea, we can't even imagine how much is getting elevated by every little action that we do. A shlucha, also my mentor from France, she posted on this chat, she said, so why isn't Mashiach here yet? If every little thing that we're doing is sanctifying so much stuff, everything should be elevated by now. And she goes, true. It's true. So we have to go ahead.
I think like there's so many things in different countries and like everything. It used to be like you only had fruits and vegetables that grew in your country and now you could have avocados along. And I actually think about it. When I eat the avocados, I'm like those people in Mexico that went and picked the avocados are like being elevated by making their bracha. Like we're having an opportunity to elevate such different delicacies that come from all over the world. Yeah.
Right. That wasn't
And maybe that's part of the purpose of why we have all these different, you know,
100%.
whatever delicacies.
100%. And I was thinking, a person could host a class for 6 years in their house in the afternoon, right? They think now I have I have a job. So now, now I have a job. So now I'm going to go and do this job. What they don't realize is the reason why you have the job is because Tom's River needs a second project called the Sichos class. You think so your job, I'm saying because of a new job, therefore so many more people are benefiting are benefiting from the Rebbe's teachings. So we have you can't we think that we're in control and we're doing this that, and the other, but we don't realize the ripple effect and what is happening by every little action that we do, all the moving parts of every single action that we do, and how much power we have that not to waste time, right? Because every minute is sanctified, even something that's seeming mundane, and every action, how powerful every action is. It's not just, and you see, because if you give $1 to tzedakah, so you're elevating the whole paycheck. And thank you, Miriam, for donating her project Likkutei Sichos on the campaign. I'm saying you give a little bit of tzedakah, right? Or you do and even a carbon, right? There's so many different species on this earth. Not all of them are kosher. But when a person brought a carbon, they sanctified all the animals on the earth. It was that animal represents all the animals on earth, which are all elevated. Another type of carbon is a mincha. A little bit of flour, that elevates all the vegetation in the entire earth. It's not just that the animal fulfills its purpose or the flower fulfills its purpose, but it's affecting the entire universe. And all this we learn from Kiddush HaChodesh, that it's not just a moon thing, but rather it affects every single minute of time. Okay, so I basically finished, but I'm just going to catch up in the poem. Okay. Okay. When the witnesses came to testify, Rosh Chodesh was sanctified without a doubt. This information helped the Yidden know when the holidays would fall out, to do all the mitzvahs that apply to each holiday they were able to fulfill. And even in the mundane days, holiness, Rosh Chodesh did instill, because the Beis Din was responsible to know what the moon looks like in the sky on every day of the month that did pass by. They also had to calculate and determine the path of the sun to make sure that in the season of spring, Pesach would always come. From sanctifying the moon, we see that every moment of time is sanctified throughout history. Since time was the first creation, for how to sanctify space, it is the foundation. That's why the mitzvah of sanctifying the moon is first, because it's the foundation for for all the mitzvahs, because sanctifying time comes before sanctifying space. When a woman buys a dress for Shabbos or for a chasana, she elevates the dress and even the factory that made it in China. And all the millions of details that got the dress from there to here are elevated when the dress she does wear. There is no action that is isolated. Every action has so many moving parts that are included. When a mitzvah is done, not only do all the parts get elevated, but it affects the entire world, which is constantly recreated. The mitzvah of sanctifying the moon is key to help us understand the power of Torah and the power that we carry. When we do our best to do our part today, we will merit the coming of Mashiach right away. Okay, so we're done. I just want to share a story. I just want to share on the story that I saw on WhatsApp that Sarah Mrazov posted. I'm just going to get my phone to give it justice. Okay, and with that, we'll end with this incredible story. Okay, here it is. It once happened. In Europe, it was the custom to fatten up geese in the months preceding Passover, since many families refrained from using any oil other than goose fat. For 6 to 8 weeks, the geese would be fed a full bucket of corn twice a day, so that by the time the holiday arrived, they would be so huge they could barely waddle. Two religious giants of the day, the Chassam Sofer, Rabbi Moshe Sofer, and the Yismach Moshe, Rabbi Moshe Teitelbaum, differed in their rulings as to whether the practice of force feeding rendered the geese treif. The question revolved around whether or not the sharp corn grains, which were forced down the throats of the birds, would damage the esophagus, thus making the birds treif, unable to live another year. The Chassam Sofer held that the esophagus would not necessarily be damaged, and so he ruled the practice permissible. Of course, the geese had to be carefully checked before being consumed to prove that they were kosher by the process described later. His contemporary, the Yismach Moshe, felt that since the corn kernels were sharp, the likelihood was that the birds would be rendered treif by the force feedings. He ruled that geese fed in this manner would not be permissible. Okay, so this also, and this question was asked in the class yesterday, what if you have two different rabbis and they each paskin differently? So, Torah rules nature, but, but how does that work? Yes, there's Shivim Panim LaTorah. How does that work? So here you have a perfect example. You have two giants. One says that feeding geese corn twice a day, making them very fat before Pesach, that it's permissible, and one says that it's not. The two corresponded back and forth, each presenting learned arguments to prove his point. And their dispute purely was for the sake of heaven. It was l'shem shemayim. Finally, the Chassam Sofer suggested that instead of theorizing, they should put their rulings to a practical test. Each was to take 10 geese and fatten them up. Then they would slaughter them, fill the esophagus with ear, and float them in a full tub of water. If the esophagus was damaged, ear bubbles would escape into the water, thus proving that the bird was treif. If no bubbles were seen, the bird would be kosher. They're each going to take 10 geese and fatten them up, and then they're going to shech them, and then they're going to see, is the esophagus damaged or not? When the birds were duly fattened and slaughtered, an amazing thing took place. All the birds from the household of the Chassam Sefer proved to be kosher. He was the one that said that it is kosher to do it. And therefore, all the birds that he experimented on, all those birds, the esophaguses were perfectly fine, and those birds were all kosher. Whereas all the birds of the Yismach Moshe tested treif. So here you see that if based in Paskins a certain thing that actually affects the nature, that these birds, he Paskin that it's okay, and his birds were kosher, and the other one Paskin that's not okay, and his birds were takatreif. So it was seen that the legal rulings of these two great giants dominated the physical reality. What they said actually had an effect on the physical reality, proving the axiom that the rulings of true halachic authorities determine the actual reality of a physical situation. Okay, there's another story, but I'll stop here. Okay.
The Torah Hashem gave Torah.
Yeah, that was exactly.
That's interesting. The different rabbanim hold different things that
Yeah,
nature will change according.
yeah.
Right.
So it is. So it's true. It's true.
Then gave the ability
Yes.
to change according to rabbanim.
Yeah, yeah. And the rub that you ask, that's and if you're not supposed to go rub hopping. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to pick your rub, and if your rub says that this is okay, then that is kosher for you. And also sometimes a Rav is not just answering a question, he's answering the person. Because you have different people in different situations and they're abundant, they have big shoulders, because they have to look at a bigger picture. And not, you have to see where the person is coming from and the whole situation to paskin properly. So anyway, okay.
The theme of emes, the Torah is always emes in every situation, and how does that fit with the fact that there's more than one emes? So I'm saying. Like we've been learning, a few times it came out now, emes
Yeah.
always.
MS is something that's eternal.
Whatever Torah, it's always emes in every situation.
But I think it's
How does that fit?
MS is nuanced. Not so black and white.
Emes, but the truth is the truth.
But
In every
the truth
situation.
for your situation,
No, circumstantial, because you take the person, so let's say.
Right.
Was there a person asking a right
Really?
question, so then they have to take the person into consideration. So the MS is of what the Torah part of it is still MS, but let's say, like the example you gave of the two of the geese.
Yeah.
So
It's so amazing that if this is your halachic authority, so I'm saying if this is your halachic authority, then think of rice on Pesach, right? So the Sfardim eat rice on Pesach. So for them, that is because if they're Rav, and it's not just someone who's a real rabbi, who if they paskin that this is the truth, then this is the way it is.
And it also comes to the halachas of the 9 days and 3 weeks. Also, they have such different halachas. You see so much of this.
Yeah.
And I mean, also like example, we sat shiva a few times, but like for my parents, example, right? We're a large family. Also, like each time it came to like different things, like every rock paskin so differently as far as like different halachas when it comes to that. There's a lot of gray areas when it comes to that. So again, like what's
right. It's all MS, okay.
Yeah, it's
all MS because it all comes from Torah. So that's really Torah is MS.
it's interesting how we have to hold that there's room for different ways, for different truths.
Right.
I feel like that's like something
I know.
you do in your life, like
I
you
know,
hold that
I know.
Yeah.
very strongly.
No, it's It's
You're a
true, but we were just-
representative of that.
Thank you, that's sweet. But we were just talking like MS about Torah.
Right.
Torah's almost
No, but
every
then
generation, every situation.
how do we have so many different sects of Judaism?
And also there's
How could it be MS?
and also within
I think also I think things are multidimensional. It's not one dimensional.
Right.
Yeah.
I think also what shows us that Hakadosh Baruch Hu made us all different, like we're different types of people, and we also have to get along and all have to accept each other for like each person and not try to change. If this is your way, this is your way, this is my way, and it's all good. It's all. So when people try to say, okay, you have to be like me, or my chassidus, or my this, or my that, no, we have to try to just appreciate each other and get along, and
we have our derech, and also even with
and it's all okay. for
right,
each.
yeah,
But then it's funny because if every derech is okay, then it's not MS.
but also it's also
Then
the
it's not your
but it's your derech. The menorah had 7 branches. There were 12 shvatim. There were 12 different paths. When the
Paths are all leading to Hashem.
Kriyas Yamsuf, there was a path for each one of the shvatim. So Hashem created us each to be unique and each to have our way. And also even within halacha, there are some things like Taras Mishpacha, for example. Like there are some things that if you don't do, the mikvah isn't valid. You know? And so actually this past Sunday, we actually had a wedding in our shul. So we've had brisin, we've had upsharnish, we've had a bas mitzvah, we had bar mitzvah. This is the first time we had a wedding. The chassin was 86.
Whoa.
And was 80. They're 11 years apart. 1 second. Was 87. And she is 76. It's not a first marriage. No. And he's much more from he's much more from a secular background, and she has an incredible story. My husband calls me on a Tuesday and he says, I met with this couple. I knew that he had met with them, but he says, you have Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday to teach her, because she needs to go to the mikvah, because the wedding is next week, Sunday. And I'm like, Tuesday's my day off, like whatever, I wasn't really like planning this. I called her at 11. By 1 o'clock, she was in my house. I called my mechatenis, Rosie Weinstein, who teaches kalas. She gave me a crash course in half an hour, like what exactly I have to tell her. Thank God, Baruch Hashem. And so I told her that mikvah actually is retroactive. That means if a person didn't go to the mikvah, and then years later they do, then they're able to, so the purity can go back retroactively, which is interesting because the same thing that we're saying with the girl, the 2 and 3 years old. And she started crying. She said, could I tell my son? So basically she says, she said, could I tell my son that mikvah works retroactively? And she says, I have to tell you my story. She says, I grew up very, very secular. And I raised my kids secular. But one thing I knew, I wanted my sons, she had 2 sons. One unfortunately passed away by COVID. So she has just 1 son right now, 1 living son. And she said she wanted him to have a bar mitzvah. So he went to Hebrew school, whatever it was, learned what he had to learn. And at the party, he's so sad. She's like, what's wrong? Like, it's your party. Like, please, like, be happy. And he said, I'm so sad because I'm afraid that after this bar mitzvah, that's gonna be the end of my Jewish education. So his mother said, do you want to go to yeshiva? And he said, yeah. She took him to yeshiva in Lakewood. This is a long time ago. And she came to the yeshiva and the principal interviewed the boy. And then and there, he put him into a class. And he told the mother, he told Edith, he said, you go home, come back at 4 o'clock. And she came back at 4 o'clock and her son was overjoyed. And he said, these boys are just like me. And he went to yeshiva. He was at the wedding. He looks like he walked out of BMG. You would never, ever in a million years dream where he came from. And he has, I don't know, 10 kids, I don't know how many children, all with the payas and the long coats. And it was incredible. Like, you couldn't believe it. You had like half, like her family is all from Lakewood. And the Chassan's family is so much more secular, but they did it in our Chabad. They had all kosher food to make everyone comfortable. We had a chuppah. The musician was from Lakewood. It was a very interesting. So I have to teach her, right? And so she started. She tries to keep Shabbos as best as she can, whatever it is. But when it comes halacha, when it comes to Haras Mishpacha, you have to know there are certain things that if you don't do it, then the mikvah is not valid. And then there's other things that are very important, and we teach this to kalas, and we encourage them to do it, but that's not going to make or break if the mikvah is kosher. Another thing, for example, is nail polish, right? So there's someone that after living in Tamzur for a few years, we had a class about Taharas Mishpacha, and this woman shared that she did not want to take off her nail polish, and therefore she didn't go to the mikvah. So are you supposed to go for nail polish before you go to the mikvah? 100%. But sometimes you have to know who you're talking to. And if the nail polish is going to make it or break it, it might be kedai, right? To go anyway. And Mirza Hashem she'll come to a place where she'll understand that that nail polish is really
that she's fine.
right. So that's what I'm saying. With halacha, yes, there's one truth. The truth is that going into the mikvah with nail polish is a chatzitza. Like no one's going to take that away. But when you have a rav who understands the person and understands the situation and sees the bigger picture and sees the future if I say to say no is very easy, but to be able to help a person, to meet the person where they are in order to elevate them, right? So halacha is halacha.
Anyways, that's a good point. You have to take time and consideration for this. It's not just, it's no use to seeing things on face value, it's just official, like, right now, within this time, within the situation. I think where Button have that ability to see the bigger picture, which also takes the bigger time into consideration.
Right.
No, they're not making the decisions obviously on their own, but moving Torah takes into consideration those factors as well.
Right. Even for example, to drive to Shul on Shabbos. Is driving to Shul on Shabbos allowed? No. Right? But I personally know a few people that have driven to our Chabad house on Shabbos and then became frum and didn't. So if you would say, well, yeah, you give them the right. So if you say no, you can't come,
I heard someone talking about like a sinner thing, like we went to a rabbi and my 3-year-old like plays with a muksa toy on Shabbos. And he was like, that's like your 3-year-old right now, Shabbos is the Shabbos table, the meal, the whatever. It's not the no, you can't touch muksa. Eventually he'll get there. It's I don't know. It's
right to see
like the beauty. I'm not talking straight.
No, 100%. Yeah.
I come from home and I was a very good girl and whatever, but it was going to be a 3-day yonta. And I remember I called up Rob. I didn't have anything established yet, and whatever. And I asked about like dyeing my eyelashes. He answered me. What's a prom? He didn't even know who I was. You don't even know who you're talking to on the other end of the phone. Thinking about it, I didn't ask you what, like, I asked you halacha, like what, as far as that, eventually. And I never called this Rob again, but because I didn't know, it's me called, like right beginning when I first got married. And it was such a lesson, because like, you be so careful. Imagine Chas Shalom was somebody who, I was okay, all right, he was very strict and whatever, and I went later or whatever, I went and asked the next person who I established as my Rob then, what I mean? Like, I wasn't looking to rent a Rob or whatever, what I'm saying, but I was trying to establish myself coming from London to America, but you have to be so careful. You don't know who the other person is on the other end of the line. Chas v'shalom, you could throw them off completely and so what, this is like how a rabbi answers me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's 100%. And also, if the rabbi tells you that this is okay for you, then the next person can't take your psak. They have to ask themselves because they're a different person. And also, I just wanted to go back to the story of the wedding and say that you could say to yourself, listen, he's 87. Like, isn't it like, um, you know, interesting that a person at such a older age would get married? Like, how long is this? How long can this marriage last? But from this sikha we learn the value of time. Every minute, when a person is older, doesn't mean that life is over. Every minute that I have, let's celebrate. Let's live it to its fullest. And also, what was so incredible is that, first of all, there's an incredible mitzvah here of a chuppah and a kiddushin, but also, believe it or not, this man, 87 years old, put on tefillin for the first time in his life on Sunday at our Chabad house, and a total of 6 men put on tefillin, and we gave out 11 to 11 women Shabbos candles, and so what I'm saying is that no action is just one action. It's just incredible. Just the marriage by itself is dayenu. You know what I'm saying? Like that itself is incredible mitzvah. But there's so many other moving parts. There's so much, and one of the ladies, she wants to know about the information for the classes. I gave her my phone number. She already contacted me, whatever. So I'm saying you just never know. There's no such thing as an isolated action. And yeah, and but the people that came to celebrate the wedding and ate the food, and make a bracha. Like there's so much. A wedding is not just a wedding. There's so many things there's so many things that get elevated, that get the flowers, the photographer, everything's elevated, and every moment is precious, and everything could be, every minute could be made holy, and every object could be made holy. Yeah, what did you want to say?
So I recently had, a couple years ago, I had a woman who came to me and asked me if she wants to put on a kippah for. So I wasn't, it was quite, it was a number of years ago. And I don't know why, but I called a certain rabbi. I said, listen, should we be selling it? Kippah balls, and he says, look, I don't think you should be doing it. Something didn't sit right with me. This woman doesn't cover her hair. And I called up another Rav, and he said, listen, through this, we hope that she'll do the next day and the next day. And exactly that's what happened.
Wow.
It wasn't even, because they're not even so comfortable, whatever. And then she ended up putting on a ball. So again, you see from this, I didn't take it, because it wasn't for me anyway. I didn't take it for, face value. I said, you know what, I'm going to contact another person. And also, it can also go, like, at that point, I wasn't so comfortable selling such a thing. Like, it wasn't, again, it's not for me to say, it's just like with the lady, whatever. Everybody has their own, their own rabbanim and their own thing. But it was like a very interesting thing how it was like such different answer. It wasn't for me, it was someone else. But the way this person, the other person, like said to me, like, we hope that, and again, the other person was like so rigid about it. So again, what's
Yeah, we have to do our part and have rabbanim, and yeah.
It's like long past 100 years. Oh, really? Have you already said? I have to like explain to him that there's different rabbanim and different rebbeim. That's two different things. And yeah.
As long as we're committed to serving Hashem,
Yeah.
and we have a Rav, and we ask a question and we follow it, then we're serving Hashem in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
And whatever, if you're doing this because Torah said so, this is Das Torah, then you're good.
I love the reframe about the whole feel like getting a job. Thinking
So
whatever.
true, and I came up with the idea, but it's
It's such a perspective change. Cause I was just like, how could Hela not be doing the
And
Monday
Chaim
class?
said, there's no way that this is we're gonna be doing less, we're doing more.
Mylin
That's-
b'kodesh. You always have to increase. You always have to increase in holiness. And I said to the ladies on Monday, I said, Monday 1 o'clock is holy. You know what I'm saying? That has to stay. You want to add, we could add, you know? So
Okay.
sanctifying time, sanctifying space, sanctifying everything.
Right.
Yeah, and it's ready. We're ready. We sanctified everything. We're ready for Mashiach now. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you, Mary, for
Thank
coming.
you, yeah, I'm gonna try, every second Tuesday we have one, like.
Right, and so.